It doesn't work. Now, the New York Times wrote an article on this. A big gamble for the left. Can socialism appeal in a swing state? Francesca Hong, a state legislator running for governor of Wisconsin, wants to prove that a Democratic socialist can win in a battleground. Some say she would hand the race to Republicans. Jeff Hanneman was infuriated to learn about a proposal this spring to build a 220-acre data center on the site of a shuttered paper mill near his house in Wisconsin Rapids. Worried that the project would pollute the tranquil waters of the nearby Wisconsin River, Mr. Hanneman, 43, planted a no data center sign in his yard. And although he's a Republican who voted for President Trump, he decided to support a Democratic socialist who has called for a pause in data center construction and is running for governor. Lo and behold, ladies and gentlemen, when you address the needs of these constituents, regardless of their party affiliation, regardless of who they have voted for in the past, they will vote for you. They will support you because they know you will support them. Data centers are increasingly becoming the next conversation, the next issue that has caused a major fissure, a major divergence between our political class and the actual voters, the working class. It's yet another issue where everyone unconditionally hates it, okay? They hate it. They don't want these data centers to be built in their backyards. And yet the politicians refuse to listen to the needs of the voters, right? Another 90-10, almost 90-10 issue. And it's another opportunity for us to seize because we care about democracy. We care about fighting for the democratic wishes of the majority. We care about leading people to the correct side on issues. If they're not there yet, we care about helping them understand why this would be beneficial. But in circumstances like Israel, for example, that advocacy has already taken root. That advocacy paired up with Israel's unlimited violence has already taken root. And that's precisely the reason why we no longer have to continue to continue defending these positions because most people understand it. I will still, of course, continue defending it. But having said that, there are a lot of issues that Americans intrinsically understand, and they transcend beyond party lines. Flock cameras is another one. Mass surveillance in the hands of the state. AI data centers propping up in their backyards is another one that draws a lot of enmity, a lot of anger from people, regardless of their party affiliation. And when they see that their Republican representatives are not actually doing anything about it, they get frustrated. So they look for alternatives. They look for someone who will fight for those things. And it doesn't matter if that person calls themselves a democratic socialist. That's it. Address people's needs, fight for them, and they will vote for you. We just need to publicize Francesca's anti-data center and left economic policies in a few slogans statewide that people can identify her campaign by. I haven't seen her doing that. The only literature I got from her once was wordy and best for people who already knew and agreed with her. Yeah. Look, not all campaigns are designed in the same with the same efficiency in mind. I think Francesca is a wonderful candidate, and I think her campaign has done a great job so far. She's obviously the most popular figure in the Democratic primaries that are coming up in August, right? We just got to make sure that people understand where she is on these issues, and we got to hammer it over and over again. We got to put her in front of as many people as possible. But yeah, I really don't care about the label, said Mr. Hanneman, who planted a Francesca Hong for governor yard sign next to the other one. If she was voted into office, she could do a lot of good things for our state. The progressive movement is surging this election cycle as liberal voters, furious with Democratic establishment they view as old, tepid, and beholden to corporate interests, have ousted incumbents, in particular socialism, a term politicians once strained to distance themselves from, has surged in popularity on the left as candidates with that label have won House primaries in New York, Denver, and Philadelphia. Wisconsin, which Trump won in 2024, presents a riskier gamble. If Ms. Hong, a 37-year-old Democratic state representative and former restaurant owner, beat several other leading candidates for her party's nomination, she will face a difficult general election contest against the Republican. I disagree. I think for our folks, for the Democratic Socialists, I think the real challenge is getting out of the primaries. I think general is actually easier. The reason why I say that is because, well, one, Trump won this state with the narrowest of margins. That's number one. Wisconsin is becoming increasingly more blue. That's number two. And this is a general blue wave midterm season. Okay? So all of those factors are already on the side of Francesca Hong. But beyond that, what matters most, in my opinion, okay, what matters most in this circumstance is the policies. Okay? This will be a real test to show as many people as possible, regardless of the outside expenditures, that when you have a left populist message that is clearly identified, easily defined, that you have policies to define yourself by, your opposition can't reach to the same old nonsensical positions to say, oh, you're crazy. Okay? You're crazy. Oh, you're pro-trans. You're trans. She wants to transgender the transgenders. Like, none of that shit matters if one side is saying, I want to give you health care. I want to give you better workplace conditions. I want to go back on Act 10. Okay? I want collective bargaining agreements to work for the labor, for the public sector employees in this country, and specifically in this state. I want to fight for you. I want to shut down these data centers that are propping up in your backyard, and I want a moratorium. And if we're going to fucking build these data centers, we're going to have a say in that process, and we're going to actually see the profits that are generated from these data centers, and we need a moratorium. When you say things like that, when you define yourself, when you define your platform, yourself, your opposition looks silly. Your opposition looks childish. Your opposition, the Republicans, look ridiculous. Okay? We have to have a more adult politics in this country, and democratic socialism represents that adult politics. It's totally, this kind of politics totally revolves around self-interest. That's what politics is supposed to revolve around. We have forgotten that fundamental principle of democracy. For far too long, people have fought these ridiculous battles, oftentimes presented by the Republicans. We fight our own battles on our own terms. We fight for the working class. We fight for their needs and their interests, first and foremost. And we are unafraid to show our moral conviction. This will make it far easier for Democratic Socialists to win, okay? They are certain that Republicans will weaponize Ms. Hong's more controversial statements, including old social media posts calling for the abolition of the police. Such attacks could hand the governor's office to Republicans and imperil Democratic efforts to flip the state legislature. This is not a year to test the Democratic Socialists, said Joe Winnicke, a former state chairman of the Democratic Party. This is in New York. Now, that's really funny. You want to know why that's funny? Because they say that every year. This is not the year to test Democratic Socialists. This is not the year to entertain Medicare for all. No, it is the year. And it was the year 10 years ago as well. It was the same exact conditions. Deteriorating material conditions for the American working class, both in Wisconsin and everywhere else. The idea that like there will be a perfectly appropriate year to test these ideas is fucking ridiculous. They're not even trying. They're not even trying to do a good job of opposing these positions because deep down inside, they understand that if you were to come out and say, this is not a year to fucking stand against AI data centers, this is not a year to stand for Medicare for all, people would look at you and go, you're a fucking goon. You're a goddamn goon. Ms. Hong's supporters insist that she is viable in a general election. They argue that growing frustration over data centers and rising prices are causing such populist aims as free healthcare and a wealth tax to resonate with both parties. The bigger challenge is conditioning voters not to be alarmed by the word socialism, they said. Progressive policies, when listed in a vacuum, are independently popular, said William Walter, the executive director of Our Wisconsin Revolution, the state version of Our Revolution, the left-wing organization started by Senator Bernie Sanders. But when they're tied back to the idea of socialism, that buzzword trigger word turns off voters. You missed the caption of the photo? Yeah, I already covered it. Jeff Hanneman, a Republican who voted for President Trump, decided to cast his vote in the governor's race for Ms. Hong, in part because she wants a pause on data center construction. Selling socialism in Trump country. Ms. Hong's socialist ideology is not the only quality that makes her an unconventional candidate. Soft-spoken yet foul-mouthed, she dresses casually on the trail and wears friendship bracelets. She proudly displays a Bucks and Six tattoo on her calf, a reference to the Milwaukee Bucks 2021 NBA championship. Child of Korean immigrants, Ms. Hong dropped out of college to work in restaurants in Madison, climbing the ladder from dishwasher to executive chef. In 2016, she opened her own restaurant, Morris Ramen, which closed in 2024 because of economic challenges. She continues to work as a chef and a bartender while running her campaign. Ms. Hong's working class origins and economic struggles are central to her candidacy, which she frames as a fight between everyday Americans and the moneyed elite, which is literally the case. She is of the working class. She understands the needs of the working class, and she will fight for the working class. It's that simple, right? And when you bring in unbelievably wealthy people who've gone to the best law schools, who are far removed from the needs of the working class or the experience of the working class, right? And you turn around and you match them up, the Republicans are going to look out of touch. Donald Trump was able to channel the frustrations of the working class in a very and channel it by way of frustration towards elites and elite institutions, despite the fact that he was a silver-spooned billionaire, right? He was able to do that. He was able to do that to success over and over again. And if there's an appetite for anti-establishment champions, the association of democratic socialism actually kind of removes you from the association of democratic elite, liberal elite. That's a good thing in a place like Wisconsin, right? She was sued in May over nearly $30,000 in credit card debt, which she has since paid off. She said in a statement last month that she was disappointed debt is portrayed as a moral failing, especially when people can't afford the basics of daily life. Ms. Hong's message and online fluency have appealed to young people and have sprung her into the top tier of candidates, though she expects to trail her rivals in campaign finance reports due out later this month. Ms. Hong will be the first Democratic Socialist governor in U.S. history and sometimes draws comparisons to Zohran Mamdani, Democratic Socialist mayor in New York City, who shocked the establishment with his victory last year. But Mr. Mamdani did not need to convert Trump supporters in deeply liberal New York. Ms. Hong, in contrast, has crisscrossed Wisconsin's rolling hills and open plains, hoping to steer conservative factory workers, dairy farmers, and cranberry growers towards her ideas. Last week, she attended Muskie Fest, a celebration honoring local fishing tradition in rural Hayward, where revelers crowned the Little Miss Muskie Queen. Muskie is a nickname for muskellunge, a freshwater fish. Ms. Hong struck a conversation with Robert Olson, who sported a Trump 2028 hat, and they found common ground on issues including mental health services and teacher salaries. "I feel like I'm talking to my people," she exclaimed. When Mr. Olson, 74, made light of transgender people, Ms. Hong stared at the ground and smiled slightly before pivoting to safer topics. After she walked away, Mr. Olson seemed impressed. He swore he could consider voting for her, even after learning about her political leanings. "She's got her mind on the issues," he said, "and she never said what party she's with, which to me isn't that important." Donald Trump broke this partisan system. He broke it with populism. He applied right-wing populism and at times lied about his left-wing populist positions as well, right? He railed against corporate ad spend. He railed against these, lobbyist-backed campaigns. He presented himself as an anti-establishment figure. And a lot of people listened to it. A lot of people believed it. Now, I don't believe it. And I've said over and over again, it's fucking bullshit, right? Like Donald Trump is lying. But that doesn't change the reality that he conditioned his cult, really, into demanding these sorts of changes. And if he actually doesn't deliver the changes that he conditioned his fan base to demand, then presenting someone who will is a tremendous opportunity. The Republicans for far too long were conditioned against communism, conditioned against demanding more government services, right? They were taught to hate this stuff. Donald Trump said he would preserve many of these government initiatives when he was running for office. People voted for it. People were excited to vote for it. People who called themselves Republicans were excited to vote for it, right? And then he violated the trust of his fan base. And now, of course, because it's a cult, many of them don't see it. But that appetite for left populism still remains. This is why I have tremendous confidence in Francesca Hong. It's the same principle behind Donald Trump's isolationism. He lied about it, but it doesn't matter. He promoted that concept. Just because his cult is perhaps maybe a little too stupid to recognize that they were lied to doesn't change the reality that they voted for it. They voted for it, and they'll vote again for it. And it doesn't even matter what form it takes. Francesca Hong is sincere. Mango Phonics, ZZZZZ. Sorry. I'll increase the intensity and the entertainment for you. Okay. Kaya's going to get groomed. Looking really plastic today? What the fuck does that even mean? Dumbass. Anyway, that's the fish. Musky. So yeah, her takes on data centers. Look, Marissa Johnson said the opposition to data centers was so strong in Wisconsin that she heard Democrats and Republicans talking about voting for Ms. Hong. Doug Kane, 71, said he was a Republican who favored data center regulation, would consider voting for a Democrat with one condition, as long as they're not a socialist, he said. Still, electing a left-wing candidate in a swing state may not be so far-fetched. The progressive movement traces its origins to the late 19th century, where Milwaukee elected a succession of sewer socialist mayors, so named for their focus on public works such as sanitation systems. More recently, the state has lived up to its battleground status by ping-ponging between hardcore conservatives, including Senator Ron Johnson and former Governor Scott Walker, and staunch liberals such as Senator Tammy Baldwin. This year, Democrats hope to build on the tenure of Governor Tony Evers, who is retiring, but Ms. Hong is not graduated to be the left standard bearer. At a forum in Madison hosted by Labor Union, attendees said they were torn between Ms. Hong and several others in the six-person field, including State Senator Kelda Roys, Mr. Barnes, and Ms. Rodriguez. Some Republicans say they're hoping for a matchup with Ms. Hong. People in both parties would say that's our best-case scenario, Brian Schimming, the Wisconsin GOP chairman, said. Good. Let them underestimate us. Good. Do you understand? It's good. Let them underestimate us every single time. We've shown up every single time, and we've won every single time, and we'll continue that as well. Okay? Not muskie. That was a bluegill. Please Google an actual muskie and be amazed. Okay. They want somebody who's going to win at the end of the day, Ms. Rodriguez, a former ER nurse, said. Running in a safe Democratic jurisdiction is one thing, but people actually showing up and making a case where people might be a little bit more hesitant, that's a completely different story, said Mr. Barnes, who ran unsuccessfully for Senate in 2022. Ms. Hong's answer to such arguments is to muse that, in some ways, she has more in common with the working-class Trump supporters at Muskie Fest than with the Democratic establishment. I have the advantage of not being a career politician, she said. The people I feel like I relate to, even if there's cultural differences, political differences, are the folks I talk to today. Yep. I mean, even the very fact that they are showcasing this, the very fact that they're offering, the very fact that they're offering this as like a viable alternative is good. It shows that things are changing. They're changing to such a degree that even the New York Times, is now showing neutral coverage instead of doing what they've done in the past, which is to say, this will never work. This is a failure. You are going to lose this swing state to the Republicans permanently by running a socialist. That's what they did with Bernie in 2016. That's what they did with Bernie in 2020. That's what they had done so for the longest time. Okay? Jamie Harrison quote tweeting Maylot.
I'm a proud Democrat, right? The things that we have accomplished as a party are the things that are in the basis of our values of fighting for working families. I sincerely believe that the big tent that we have, the diversity and the thought and the ideas that we have is where we find our strength. The debates that we are going to engage in, the conversations that we're going to have about the solutions that we can unite on.
Why do you never talk about socialism? Huh? My favorite liberal Zionist supporter and Holocaust denier collab. Please ask him about Illuminati or the Holocaust. Were any of the Democrats you've had on conferences responsible for war crimes? Oh, this is a Rage Bait account. Hey, chatters. Do you see this candidate that just defeated a 30-year incumbent? You know she's in favor of an arms embargo to Israel, right? How many people have you guys elected into Congress that are in favor openly and ran openly on an arms embargo to Israel? Because I know you'll change the dynamic soon. You'll change the goalposts. You'll shift them soon. Because that was something that I saw on my timeline. That was something that I saw on my timeline from a lot of bad empanada fans who were like, oh, if you actually want to solve these problems, like how many of them are actually demanding an arms embargo on Israel, right? Because they constantly go back to AOC's position and they say, oh, AOC is not going far enough. Virtually every single candidate that I've pushed for, that has won, Chris Rabb, Adam Hamawi, Mela Quiros, Daria Liza, Claire Valdez, every single one of them have pushed for an arms embargo against Israel. Did you know that? No, you didn't, because you think you're above the American electoral politics. You think you're operating on a higher frequency, okay? And that's precisely the reason why you have found yourself duped by online drama, okay? If you were at least paying attention to what's actually going on, you would have recognized that there are multiple candidates that have successfully run on an arms embargo to Israel. Okay? Multiple. I'm the director of Our Wisconsin Revolution. That was my quote. Not how I wanted it to sound, but got the point across. You did great. Anyway, what's funny about it is Jamie Harrison is now quote retweeting this and thanking Maylot Quiros. That's awesome. Good. They should come to our side. Good. And eventually they will. Just as I always say, look, one day everyone will have been against this is not only just the name of this book, but also a principle that we have seen, a reality that we have watched unfold with Israel. One day, they're all going to say they were always for it. Okay? They'll be like, of course we're in favor of socialism. What do you mean? Of course we're in favor of Medicare for all. Of course we're in favor of first social democracy and then maybe even more of an expansion on workers' autonomy and workers' rights in the workplace. It just takes time. You'll never guess what Ted Cruz is talking about on the 4th of July. Today's the 47th anniversary of the daring Entebbe raid. I was only 5 at the time, but I remember being inspired by the amazing courage of the IDF team that rescued hostages and killed the terrorists. I thought that's a very Texan foreign policy. Oh my God. After your tweet, they asked for examples of candidates that call for sanctions and embargoes. And when I provided like 10 people, they said, well, why aren't all of them calling for it? You literally can't satisfy this shit. Yeah, no, they're not looking for solutions, man. They're not. They're just angry. And it's understandable to be angry. I understand your anger. I'm angry too. The problem is you can't let your anger be an impediment to change. You can't let your anger be an impediment to progress. That's from 2023. Ted Cruz has been up on that, up to his pro-Israel shit for years, by the way. That Ted Cruz tweet on July 4th is from 2023, just so you guys know. What I'm sure all these working class women in Michigan love is an Oxford Columbia dude laughing at his woman opponent as too dumb. Really know how to attract those working class voters, says Neera Tandon, calling Abdul a sexist, rerouting the Bernie bro meta once again in the big 226, the holy year of our Lord. Probably not going to work, but it is also incredible that it's like literally an APAC. Holy fuck, that's huge. Everything about it was pretty unbelievable. 51.5-inch muskie caught in West Bay. Okay, you were right. You were right. That is actually worthwhile to look at. That is a big one. Holy fuck. People are way more insulted by Democrat elites trying to manipulate them with this woke 1.0 rhetoric than they are by Abdul calling Stevens dumb. And if Neera doesn't get this after 10 years of failing, she's even dumber than Stevens. Yes. Those things are under your feet when you swim. Yeah, that's terrifying. I will not be diving in. Yeah. Speaking of woke 1.0, the people that are like cynically trying to deploy identity politics and being fucking annoying, Shannon Watts hates Arabs and Muslims so much she continues to repost someone that's on an active case for on an active court case for revenge porn and CSAM. Just doesn't remember. Just remember she doesn't actually give a fuck about children, right? Abortion doesn't matter. Gay rights don't matter. Guns don't matter. Only Palestine matters now. Yep. Okay, that's what it is. And she's like reposting a weird psychopathic sex cult leader and his rallying cry to mass harass journalists. That's the tweet that she retweeted. Okay? Insane. Shannon Watts just openly endorsing mass organized harassment of journalists is crazy. They also brigaded the community notes. Sharing porn without the consent of the victim is colloquially considered revenge porn. Nobody gives a fuck if he did it maliciously or if it's just because he's an amoral pervert trying to fuck another teenager. I don't know what this is, but I guess they're trying to like spam community notes everywhere. I know they love brigading. If you click the link provided by the community note and open the complaint, the case is entirely about revenge porn. The case has nothing to do with revenge porn or CSAM. The court documents are publicly available for all to see. So they got that context community note and then they looked at the community note, and it says, plaintiff Jane Doe, by and through her undersigned counsel, and very respectfully states, alleges and prays as follows: hold the defendant accountable for his unauthorized, unintentional, and unlawful discourse and dissemination of intimate images and sexually explicit videos of the plaintiff, thereby causing plaintiff extreme emotional and physical distress. Literally, the community note that they posted disproves the community note context they were trying to fucking put forward. That's all these guys do. Check out this British nonsense community note history. LaMaffeo, completely brain broken Destiny fan. Hassan is not a fan of Hunter Biden. Going as far as calling his father an awful monster and prostate cancer doesn't change that. Even calling him incorrectly an immoral genocidaire. He's just, again, this is Destiny's Pete Widgeon, another one of Destiny's like loyal soldiers. Okay, they spend every waking moment tirelessly brigading at the behest of their fucking cult leader. It is so weird. But that's all they got. And that's all other reactionaries have at their disposal: lying. But sometimes they do something that I find really funny, which is describe the current existing conditions under capitalism and then claim this is what socialism would look like. And of course, one of my favorite